My name is Colonel David Brennan. And for 3 years, everyone I loved thought I was a traitor to my country. It started in Berlin in 2016. I was a mid-level Army intelligence officer stationed at the European Command Headquarters, analyzing Russian military capabilities. Good career, solid reputation, a wife and 2 kids back in Virginia who visited me every summer. I was exactly the kind of officer the Russians would want to recruit. That's why the CIA chose me. The approach came on a Wednesday afternoon in November. I was having lunch at a cafe near Checkpoint Charlie when a man sat down across from me without invitation. Mid-50s, expensive suit, slight Russian accent. "Colonel Brennan," he said, not asking, "My name is Dmitri. I represent certain interests who would be very grateful for your cooperation." I should have walked away immediately. Should have reported it to counterintelligence. That's what training says to do. Instead, I did what I'd been instructed to do 3 months earlier in a windowless room at Langley. "I'm not interested," I said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Then quieter, "But I'm listening." Dmitri smiled. "Smart man. We can make you very wealthy, Colonel. All we need is information you already have access to. Assessment reports, deployment schedules. Nothing that would truly harm your country. That's treason. That's survival. Your country doesn't pay you what you're worth. Your wife is unhappy living on a military salary. Your daughter wants to go to Princeton. Do you know what that costs?" He slid a card across the table. "Think about it. When you're ready, call this number." He left. I sat there for 10 more minutes, my coffee growing cold, my hands shaking slightly. Not from fear, from adrenaline, because this was exactly what the CIA had been waiting for. 3 months earlier, I'd been pulled from a routine briefing and driven to a secure facility outside the city. Inside, 2 CIA officers were waiting. "Colonel Brennan," the woman said. She introduced herself as Agent Carson. "Russian intelligence has been targeting American officers in your position. We believe you're on their recruitment list." "Why me?" "Because you fit the profile. Mid-career, financially stressed, access to valuable intelligence, but not so high-profile that your compromise would trigger immediate investigation. You're perfect for them." The male officer, Agent Martinez, leaned forward. "We want to use that. We want you to let them recruit you." I stared at them. "You want me to become a double agent." "We want you to become a conduit for disinformation," Carson corrected. "The intelligence you'll pass to Russia will be carefully prepared by our analysts. Some of it will be true, enough to make them trust you. Most of it will be false. Misleading assessments, wrong deployment schedules, fabricated capabilities analyses. We'll use you to feed them exactly what we want them to believe. And if they figure out, they won't. We're very good at this. But, Colonel, you need to understand what you're agreeing to. You can't tell anyone. Not your commander. Not your colleagues. Not your family. As far as the world is concerned, you will be a traitor. Only a handful of people will ever know the truth." I thought about my wife, Jennifer, my daughter, Emma, who was 16, my son, Michael, who was 12. What would they think if they believed I betrayed my country? "How long?" I asked. "Minimum 2 years, possibly longer." I should have said no. Should have chosen the safety of my reputation, my family's peace of mind. But the intelligence officer in me understood the value of what they were proposing. Russia was becoming more aggressive. They were testing boundaries, probing weaknesses. If we could feed them false information, make them believe things that weren't true, we could shape their decision-making. We could prevent conflicts before they started. "I'll do it," I said. Carson nodded. "Then, from this moment forward, Colonel, you're on your own." The operation worked perfectly for 18 months. I met with Dmitri every 6 weeks, always in different locations, cafes, parks, museums. I passed him USB drives containing intelligence that looked damaging, but was actually carefully crafted misinformation. Russia believed we had capabilities we didn't have. They thought our deployments were in places they weren't. They made strategic decisions based on lies I fed them. And nobody suspected. Until the FBI photograph. It happened in Prague during a conference. I'd met Dmitri in a park to pass him information about a fabricated missile defense system. Someone, a tourist maybe, or another intelligence service, took a photograph of us together. The photo showed me clearly handing him something. Within a week, it was in the hands of U.S. counterintelligence. The Army's investigation was swift and brutal. They pulled my security clearance. They put me under surveillance. They interrogated me for hours. "We have evidence you've been meeting with Russian intelligence officers," the lead investigator said, sliding the Prague photograph across the table. "We have financial records showing deposits into your account. We have witnesses who saw you passing documents. I can explain." "I doubt it. You're being charged with espionage. Colonel, you're going to prison for the rest of your life." I wanted to tell them the truth. Wanted to scream that I was working for the CIA, that everything was authorized, that I was the good guy. But my instructions were clear. If compromise, say nothing. Deny everything. The CIA would intervene when the time was right. Except they didn't intervene. Days passed, then weeks. I was placed under house arrest pending court-martial. My commander stripped me of my duties. Fellow officers I'd worked with for years crossed the street to avoid me. And then Jennifer filed for divorce. She came to the house we were no longer allowed to leave together, her eyes red from crying, her lawyer beside her. "I can't do this, David," she said. "I can't be married to a traitor. I can't have my children grow up with this shame. Jen, please, there's more to this. Don't lie to me anymore." She slammed her hand on the table. "They have photographs. They have evidence. Just tell me the truth for once. Did you sell secrets to Russia?" I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 20 years, the mother of my children, my partner through deployments and hardships and all the challenges of military life. And I lied to her face. "Yes," I said, "I did." She stood up and walked out. I didn't see her again for 3 years. The court-martial was scheduled for March 2019, 3 years after the operation began. I'd been living in limbo, under house arrest, my career destroyed, my family gone, my reputation shattered. The media called me a traitor. Veterans groups demanded I be dishonorably discharged. My own father, a Vietnam veteran, publicly disowned me. And through it all, the CIA said nothing. I'd stopped believing they ever would. Then 1 week before my court-martial, Agent Carson appeared at my door. "Colonel Brennan," she said, "it's time." The next day, in a closed session with only the judge and prosecutors present, Carson laid out the truth. She presented classified documents showing I'd been recruited by the CIA. She provided records of every meeting with Dmitri, every piece of disinformation I'd passed, every Russian strategic decision that had been influenced by our operation. She showed how Russia had repositioned forces based on false intelligence I'd given them, how they'd wasted resources preparing for threats that didn't exist, how they'd been completely fooled. "Colonel Brennan didn't betray his country," she said. "He served it at great personal cost. Everything he did was authorized by the highest levels of our intelligence community. He's a patriot who sacrificed his reputation, his career, and his family to protect American interests." The prosecutor looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Why wasn't this disclosed earlier? Because the operation was still ongoing. Russian intelligence believed Colonel Brennan had been caught and burned as a source. That made them trust other sources more, sources we've also been running. Revealing the truth earlier would have compromised those operations. And now the strategic value of maintaining his cover is outweighed by the injustice of allowing his prosecution to continue. All charges were dropped. My security clearance was restored. The Army quietly issued a statement saying new evidence had emerged that exonerated me. But the damage was done. They gave me a medal in a private ceremony, the Intelligence Star, for extraordinary heroism. 6 people attended. No press. No public recognition. Just a quiet acknowledgement that I'd done something that mattered. I tried to rebuild. I reached out to Jennifer. She agreed to meet me at a coffee shop in Arlington, the same one where we'd had our first date 23 years earlier. "I can't tell you everything," I said when she sat down, her body language closed off and guarded. "But I can tell you this. I never betrayed my country. Everything I did was for a classified operation. I was working for the CIA the entire time. She stared at me for a long moment. For 3 years, you let me believe you were a traitor. I had to. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell anyone. You let our children grow up thinking their father was a spy for Russia. Do you know what Emma went through at school? Do you know what Michael had to endure? His best friend's father wouldn't let him come over anymore because his dad was a traitor. I know, and I'm sorry, but I was protecting something bigger. Bigger than your family? Her voice cracked. What could possibly be bigger than that? I didn't have an answer that would satisfy her. How do you explain that you chose duty over family? How do you quantify the value of strategic deception against the cost of your children's suffering? I thought you'd come back, she said quietly. I thought when the truth came out, everything would go back to normal. But David, I don't know you anymore. The man I married wouldn't have let his children suffer like that. He would have found a way. There was no other way. There's always another way. You just chose a mission over us. She stood up. I hope it was worth it. She left. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. My daughter speaks to me now, occasionally. Short, polite conversations that feel like talking to a stranger. My son doesn't speak to me at all. I retired from the Army last year with full honors that can never be publicly explained. I live alone in a small apartment in Washington, D.C., consulting for defense contractors on projects I can't discuss. Sometimes, I wonder if Carson was right when she said I was a patriot. Sometimes, I wonder if I was just a fool who confused duty with honor. But then I read intelligence reports about Russia, about their miscalculations, about the conflicts that didn't happen because they believed intelligence that wasn't true, about the American soldiers who didn't die because Russian forces were positioned in the wrong places at the wrong times. And I tell myself it mattered. I tell myself the sacrifice was worth it. I tell myself that some heroes have to live with being called villains. My name is Colonel David Brennan. For 3 years, my country thought I was a traitor. For 3 years, I fed lies to Russia while the CIA watched. I saved lives that will never know they were saved. I prevented conflicts that will never make the history books. I sacrificed my family for a mission that can never be publicly acknowledged. And on the darkest nights, when I'm alone with my regrets, I still don't know if I'd make the same choice again. But I know this. Some battles are fought in shadows. Some victories look like defeats. Some heroes die with their honor intact. And some live with it shattered. I'm one of the second kind. And that's the price of the truth.